Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Saturday, the 27th of September, 2025, which means it's Jack's birthday. My boy's birthday is today. So everybody wish our boy Jack a happy birthday. It is also, of course, day 1311 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5, normally from Kyiv, but we are in Sofia, Bulgaria this week. And this will be the last live from Sofia. Yes, this will be the last live from Sofia. I'm with you, Raven. Tomahawks and J-Sams for everybody. Jasms, whatever. Thanks, G2. Thanks, Sandra. Hey, Richard Prexis. Hey, Super User. Hey, Courtney Davis. How you guys doing? Hey, Gare. What's going on, pal? Hey, Nicola Jones. There's Anthony Tommy Tom. Hey, Tommy Weber. Hey, Grotland. Roy Daniels is here, of course. Good to see you, Roy. Kath Brown. Hey, Arna. And there's Arna, the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank Arna for us, please. Thank you, Arn. Arn, I'll tell you the truth. I took a cab back from today's, I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. My feet hurt, my legs hurt. In the middle of the workshop today, my right leg cramped up. I had to go walk around the block. Every movement, exquisite agony. I know. I'm such a worthless piece of shit, Arn. Oh, God. Hey, Derek Sands. So, Arn, thank you. How'd you do? See any moose today? Hey, Eli. Hey, Lars. Hey, Sarah. Hey, the kid. I am so old. Hey, Mad Mike. Right on, pal. Right on. Better luck tomorrow. So, who's got champagne? Hey, Gypsy. Hey, Mike now. Anybody got champagne? Hey, Paul. If you got some, hey, Nicholas. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Hey, Dino. Afternoon, pal. Hey, bro dog. I'll tell you something. If I had some champagne right now, I would pop that cork. I would absolutely pop that cork. Prosecco is a great substitute, Raven. I encourage you to pop it. Or Anthony, celebrate however you celebrate. Hey, Mark Charles. Oh, it's tough, pal. Kava, like you're spelling that with a C, Sarah. Do you mean kava kava? I think that's a K usually, isn't it? Kava kava. I'm not sure what C-A-V-A is. Hey, Chef Deb. Hey, Van. Van the man. How you living, brother? Hey, Sergey. Yeah, a bottle of sparkling water. You know, it's funny. I was watching, so you know, TikTok replays these videos on this day, right? These on this day videos. And so today's September 26th. And an old video of mine played, and it was a very positive video about Ukrainian advances in Robotny, summer of 2022. Now, for anybody who remembers the challenges that the Ukrainians faced in the summer offensive of 2022 and how they couldn't move forward. The challenges, right, we gave the Russians 8 months to prepare defenses, and they did. And that was too bad, boy. That was really, really I'm sorry, summer 2023. Summer 2023. Russians had 8 months to prepare defenses, laid 1 million landmines. And that's why we have this static front line. Because of the West's dilly-dallying. And I'm watching this video from 2 years ago. And this is when I had first come to Ukraine, had first started the channel. And I was very positive and very naive. And I was sure that the Ukrainians were going to march right to Melitopol. They did not. Rather, the preparations that the Russians had made halted the frontline advance of the Ukrainians. And we have been in this deadlock for 2 years. 2 years. That is all changing. That is, make no mistake, it is changing. I don't know what the Ukrainians are going to do over the next 60 days, but I know that that dramatic changes to the front line are coming. I'm certain of it. In ways, now you know, after that summer of 2023, the failed summer offensive of 2023, I became far more reticent to be positive about the Ukrainians moving forward. I have no hesitation today in saying that things are about to change. Stay with me here. Follow what's happening over the next 60 days. You, like everything that the Ukrainians do, that seemingly come out of nowhere, but in fact are the result of thoughtful, considerate planning and flawless execution. We're going to see something like that again. Hey, Marius. Hey, Michael Kistner. It's coming. I am certain that it is coming. Now, I wouldn't say that Crimea will be retaken soon, right, Raven? But I believe that within the next 60 days, we're going to see a full-on siege of Crimea. The water cut off, the fuel cut off, the food cut off, making Crimea untenable for the occupying forces. I do believe that that is what is coming, and it is coming fast. It's coming as sure as your next heart attack. It's coming. Already. Now, why do I say this? What has changed? Well, you know, I follow that Steve Rosenberg, the BBC Russia editor-chief. And in his piece today, he was quoting, Steve, please, right? Like, it's such a stupid thing to say. We're in World War III already. We've been in World War III since February 24th, 2022. It's just not the world war that we're used to. It's the first global conflict of the 21st century. A global conflict that happens not just on the battlefield, but in the hybrid space, in the cyber space, in the air space. It's happening all the time. Russian terrorist activity against points in the West have been happening nonstop for 15 years. Ask the people in Salisbury, Britain, right? Or England, pardon me. I think you have to say England, right? Is that right, Anthony? I think so. Where we saw a former Russian official, the attempted assassination of him and his daughter, and the collateral death of an innocent British citizen. We saw the same thing in Germany, in Berlin, in the middle of a park, in the middle of the day. A Russian defector gunned down by one of Putin's goons. We saw warehouses and malls burned in Poland. We saw ammunition dumps in the Czech Republic blown up. Just a couple weeks ago, we saw trucks in Germany destined for Ukraine burned in the warehouse there. Now, not to mention what we're seeing with these airspace incursions over the last, what are we up to now, 2 weeks, right? Poland, the 24 drones that flew into Poland flew in 2 weeks ago today. No, I'm not sure what that's about, Steve, but I'm sure that it's another example of the kind of hybrid attacks. Right, Nightshade, the DHL planes, incendiary devices on our cargo, on our shipping, on our private, not military, private cargo planes. Not to mention the $1.9 billion a year that Vladimir Putin spends on Russian disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation poured into the ears of Americans and Westerners in order to poison our political discourse and set us at odds one against the other, inflaming tensions in the West. Don't fucking tell me we're not at war with Russia. Don't fucking tell me that there isn't a World War III going on right now. It is. And it is Russia fighting the world and Ukraine fighting for the world. That's the world we're living in. And it is about time that we all came to grips with it and stopped pretending that anything else beyond that isn't what's really happening, because that's what's really happening. Now, I'll tell you, we saw again, right, Steve Simpson, it's World War III already. It's happening everywhere. And a major volley for the good guys went off today. Not today, but this week. What's his name? The Trump of the tropics, Brazil's Bolsonaro. 27 years in jail. For what? For inciting his followers to riot and attack the Capitol building, where they ran rampant for 6 hours, shit on the floor, shit on the desks. Does this sound familiar to anybody? He has been sentenced to 27 years in prison for insurrection, an insurrection that looks exactly like what Trump did here in the United States. And so the Trump of the tropics is going to jail, right? And we'll never hear from him again. That is the fate that awaits Donald Trump, the creature of the Kremlin that he is, the tool of Vladimir Putin to undermine American power and influence in the world, which he is doing a hell of a job at, I must say. You know, I tell people all the time that what I do, what my job is to convince my fellow Americans of the importance of the continued defense of Ukraine. And then I generally apologize that I'm doing such a poor job because we're not doing what we need to be doing. While Donald Trump, he's doing great, boy. He's carrying out the will of his handlers in a fashion that no one could ever have predicted. The kind of the shit that he is doing. Oh yeah, Roy. Roy makes a good point, right? Trump is working on Bolsonaro's behalf. Of course he is. Bolsonaro is in jail for what Trump did. That's a precedent that Trump cannot have. And Judy makes a great point here, right? Because there's another, just like the jailing of Bolsonaro is a step in the right direction for the recovery of democracy in the face of this ongoing tidal wave, this rising tide of fascism in the world. Just like that's a step in the right direction, so too Moldova is at a critical inflection point in its history. These are dominoes to watch. This weekend, if I'm not mistaken, it's Sunday, is the Moldovan election. And how Moldova votes, and whether or not the Russian interference in that vote, because we know the Russians are interfering. We know the Russians are interfering. Just like they interfered in Romania, just like they interfered in the US, just like they interfere. Election rigging and election interference is the goddamn Kremlin's favorite fucking hobby. And they're doing it in Moldova right now, trying to subvert the lawful government of Moldova, the democracy of Moldova, into a Putin puppet regime. That's what they're trying to do. Now, the people of Moldova have a choice in front of them on Sunday. Do they vote for the expansion of their democracy, their inclusion in the EU, their movement toward the West, or do they vote to remain under the yoke of Russian oppression? And if the vote does go that way, is there anything we can do about it? And that's a tough one, that is. Now in Romania, the Romanians, they're paying attention, boy. When it became clear that the pro-Putin candidate that won the presidential primary had in fact been bankrolled secretly by the Kremlin, they overturned the results of the election. They said, nope, we're not doing that. Not doing that. We're going to arrest that fucker for taking all that money from the Russians, and then we're going to have another election. Now, why can't we do that in the United States? Polka Paul asked the question, did Russia affect the Brexit vote? I'm not familiar with the evidence that they did, so I can't cite. I wish I could say, oh yeah, they definitely did, Paul. And here's why. But I don't have good evidence on that. My gut tells me that the entire Brexit thing was Russia's doing. Absolutely it was. Of course it was. Why wouldn't it be? They want to drive a wedge between between all the members of the West, between the NATO members and each other, between continental Europe. If we're separate, we are more easily divided. We are more easily divided. Russia's big on division, just like Donald Trump. That's why they get along so well, right? So now, why do I want to celebrate tonight? Why am I encouraging all of you to pop a bottle of champagne if you have it, or whatever your preferred celebratory method of celebration is? Why the optimism? That is the question, Nicholas. Why? First of all, the conviction of Bolsonaro is a move in the right direction. So on the world stage, good man, refurb man. Cheers, brother. Oh, Bip's got a little bourbon out. Hungary's dangerous, make no mistake. And Seawolf's got Jack Daniels. Seawolf, did I tell you, man, everywhere you go in this town, there's signs for Jack Daniels. They love the Jack Daniels in Sofia, Bulgaria, boy. Yes, they do. So, first of all, Jimmy Kimmel back on the air for all my American friends. Thanks, Jake. Oh, that's Jake. Right on. Nice. First of all, Jimmy Kimmel's back on the air. Good. Good. That's a win for democracy. Then you got Bolsonaro under house arrest and awaiting jail time. 27 years. Then you got Operation Eastern Sentry. And finally, NATO has given the go-ahead to shoot down anything that comes into NATO airspace, including manned aircraft. It's about time. Hey, Feisty. It's about time that we got that shoot-to-kill order. So that's on the table now. And you know what that means, don't you? It means the manned planes will stop. That's what it means. Putin's not going to risk his planes. He knows what happened in Turkey in 2015. Turkish fighter crosses the border, or was right on the border there. And the Turks shot it right down. And you know what happened? The Turks didn't go to war with Russia. Russia never flew a fucking plane into Turkish airspace again because they're worthless cowards, right? They're bullies who are, just like Donald Trump, they're bullies who are only interested in picking fights with people they know that they can easily beat. That's who they are. But that's not the only reason for optimism. The real reason for optimism comes from the Russian newspapers today. The real reason for us all to be full of joy, for us all to be looking forward to a bright new dawn tomorrow morning, is because of what the Russian papers are reporting today. That's why. Now, what are the Russian papers reporting today? You might ask yourself. Well, for one thing, school children couldn't go to school today in parts of Russia because there was no gas for the buses. There was no, right? This like nightmare frozen wasteland that's cosplaying as a country. That's really just a gangster nightmare gas station with nukes is out of gas. Which is amazing beyond words, right? They hit a Pivsky last night again. The Ukrainians did. Apparently so now, guys, this is the fourth time this year that they hit the Afipsky oil refinery in Krasnodar Krai. Fourth time this year, third time since August 1st, right? If I'm not somebody have to fact check me on this, but something like the 7th and the 28th of August, and then they hit it again last night. Why? Right now, the 7th to the 28th, that's 3 weeks. The 28th to the 26th is 4 weeks. Why? Can anybody guess? Why would there be 3 or 4 weeks between these hits on Russia's largest southern refinery, responsible for refining 15 million tons of crude oil a year? Right? Hope the kids enjoyed their day off of school. That's it, Eli. Eli hits it right on the head, baby. First in with the right answer. They're waiting for them to fix it. So as soon as it's a thing of beauty, isn't it? As soon as the Russians have just about got the thing fixed, hey, Tony, what do the Ukrainians do? They hit it again. And what we saw overnight last night was the cracking tower hit again. Now, the cracking tower, of course, is where all the magic happens in an oil refinery, where the heavy, specific gravity of crude oil is used to evaporate out lighter products like gasoline and diesel, etc., from heavier products like bitumen and asphalt. 15% of the southern Russian military district's daily fuel requirements are now offline. Overall, conservative estimates put Russian refining capacity down by 21%. There are more aggressive estimates that suggest that domestic refining capacity is actually down by 29%. That 1 in 3 gallons of gasoline that Russia needs to keep its economy running is not being produced. Now, not only that, right, as if that were not bad enough, the fuel shortages have reached Moscow. The Lukoil company has shut down half of its gas stations in Moscow. That's 14% of all gas stations in Moscow are now closed because there's no gas. It is getting increasingly difficult for the Russian regime to hide the reality of the pain that they have caused. Make no mistake, the pain that Russia is suffering right now is the direct result of its genocidal lunacy inside of Ukraine. They have done this to themselves. Now, of course, in the papers, because remember, we're talking about the Russian papers, that's not how it's being reported. In the Russian papers, this is another thing. This is another reason to pop them corks. Because in the Russian papers, you know what they're not saying anymore? They're not talking about the special military operation quite as much. Now they're talking about war. They're calling it a war. Which everybody that's been paying attention knows that this war has been raging since 2014. That the Ukrainians have been suffering for 11 years under the constant onslaught of Russian aggression. Now, while 14% of the... Now, here's the thing, right? It's not like this shit hasn't been going on. But the Russian papers don't talk about it. The Russian papers are talking about it today. Izvestia reported today that fully half of the gas stations in Crimea are closed because they have no gas. Now, for Izvestia to print that inside Russia means that things are far more bad than even we know. They have to be. And I apologize to all my Russian-speaking friends here. I have trouble with this name. Nezamaya Gazeta, right? The Russian state-owned media property has reported today, and the quote is something to the effect of, the leading economic indicators that Russian officials stated in April would be leading to an economic downturn are in fact far worse than we had predicted. And we believe that by the end of the year, the economy will unravel. It was basically, the translation was basically what I just said. Now, for those words to be in a Russian state-owned paper, and what did I tell you? What did I tell you? We don't know when Russia's going to unravel, but the goddamn Russians do. And we know that because the Russians authorized the FSB to open unlimited numbers of pre-trial detention facilities. Read torture chambers, mass arrest sites, whatever you want to call them. All of those descriptions are accurate. Budget reconciliation is in December, Steve. Russia will not survive the December budget reconciliation, in my opinion. Not without the most dramatic of actions. All of this is a cause for hope. All of this is a cause for real joy in the face of a violent, vicious, genocidal enemy. An enemy of democracy, an enemy of humanity, an enemy of civilization. These people, make no mistakes, are enemies of civilization. And we see it now unraveling on the front lines. Nightshade said down here, it'll be a dark, cold Christmas in Russia. Boy, pal, you ain't kidding. And let's talk about that here for a second. But also, Rabo says, will China bankroll Russia? No, let's be clear on this. I'd have to look, who asked that question? Rabo, dude, I would have to look because the number escapes me right now. I want to say the Russians on the Belt and Road Initiative are into the Chinese for $65 billion. Now, $65 billion to the U.S. economy, not a big deal, right? To most Western European nations, manageable. But to the Russian economy, it's a lot of fucking money. The entire Russian economy is smaller than the economy of Texas or California or New York at $2 trillion a year. 2.2 trillion. So $65 billion in debt to the Chinese is a lot of money to the Russians. China. Now, what does Vladimir Putin always say, right? He talks about the historical lands of Russia. where Russian people, speaking people live. Historical Russia belonged to Moscow. Yes? Well, you know, the Chinese have a long history themselves, and they have long memories as well. And they remember that North Manchuria used to be Chinese. They remember that Vladivostok was founded as a Chinese city and that Russian imperialism took it away from them a mere 200 years ago, a drop in the bucket for Chinese and Russian history, right, compared to us in the West. It does appear increasingly that the Chinese are eyeing Siberia all the way to Vladivostok and what was North Manchuria in the past. So much for the no limits relationship. It's the opinion, and Sarah Payne is great on this. If anybody knows who Sarah Payne is, she's I forget her rank because she's American military and a military historian, brilliant woman, incredibly insightful. And I was listening to her talk about how the Chinese want to get that land back and are eyeing it up. And if Russia becomes weak enough, rather than China bankrolling Russia, we will see their friendship with no limits turn into a backdoor fucking without a reach around. Russia's invested. Now forget about the $65 billion that the Russians owe the Chinese. The Chinese have invested billions and billions in energy infrastructure in Siberia. Now look at China's got 1.4 billion people. They need more and cheaper energy all the time. Well, the land up there is loaded with it. Why wouldn't they want to have that under their control? And then there's the question of Lake Baikal. Right? Do you guys know about Lake Baikal? It's, as I understand it, it's the largest freshwater reserve on Earth. 20% of the world's fresh water is in Lake Baikal. It is such a huge body of fresh water. If I'm not mistaken, the only species of freshwater seal in the world lives on Lake Baikal. The Chinese are having a problem because of climate change. In the north of the country, all the farmland where rice is produced, and rice is an aqua crop. It grows in water. You need a lot of water to produce the staple to produce the staple that the Chinese people depend on, rice. Well, not only does China need more fossil fuels for its economy to continue to grow, it needs more water as the north is drying out, and Lake Baikal could well supply that water. Right? Remember, we've talked before about the idea of water wars in a climate change affected world, where people have to have water. It's in Siberia, Nightshade. I think technically that Lake Baikal is in Siberia. I'm not sure it's above the Arctic Circle. It might lie right on it or just southerly of it. I'd have to take a look. Southern Siberia, says Dust Bunny. Thanks, Dust Bunny. So, look, Russia can't count on the Chinese. No fucking way. The Chinese relationship to Russia is one of a vassal state. Russia has now made itself so dependent on China that China's in charge. Whatever China wants Russia to do, Russia's going to have to do it. I think that China is giving Russia enough rope to hang itself. And I'll tell you, Putin's doing a hell of a job, isn't he? He is doing a hell of a job destroying He's destroyed, he's run through the entire Soviet inheritance, the seemingly endless stockpiles of tanks and armored vehicles and planes and bombs and shells and rockets and missiles and ammunition. He's burned through it all. I mean, the Ukrainians helped, of course. Some of those arsenal bombings were spectacular in the most dramatic fashion, right? Russia's no friend. Russia's a snake in the grass that's going to bite him on the ankle as soon as they think it'll get them what they want. Cheshire's Cheese says the gold reserves are still quite well stocked. What are you talking about? Are you talking about Russia's gold in the Sovereign Wealth Fund? Is that what you mean? Are you saying that the Russians still have a lot of gold on hand? Maria, I think you're right. I think Ukraine has just started. Way short on radar and air defense systems, increasingly. Now, of course, Russia had a lot of those at the beginning of the war. So it's important not to overstate the hits that the Ukrainians have made. But there is no doubt that the Ukrainians are, with precision, blinding the Russians on the front line. That's a fair thing to say. Definitely. Now, Kommersant. What was reported in Kommersant today? Shit, that's slipping my mind now. There was a... All right, I forget the example from Kommersant. I apologize. What air defense doing? What air defense doing? Oh, Kommersant reported, get this. There was an accident where a truck accidentally drove onto a railroad track, derailing 18 fuel cars loaded with desperately needed fuel, right? And setting them ablaze. Now, we know that the Ukrainians are striking, ooh, I feel pretty, accidentally, right, Guard? It was an accident. It was just a falling debris that just always happens to be in the shape of a Ukrainian drone and packed with explosives. So here's the thing. The Ukrainians, we're watching the Ukrainians now. From the very beginning of oil production, that is the pipelines that bring crude through the Iron Horse to the refineries, they're hitting those pipelines. The pipelines that load crude oil onto ships to put money in the coffers of the Russian Federation, they're blowing them up. The refineries that refine and process that crude oil for use inside of Russia, they're blowing them up. So that oil refining capacity is down by at least 21% right now. And given the way that Ukraine is double tapping that, it's going to stay at down 20% or so. On the final phase, the delivery of the product, the much needed product to the end user, they're hitting that too. Now dig this, because this is the icing on the cake. The fuel train that was hit by the truck, the 18 fuel cars that burned, had been refined in Belarus. Putin has been putting pressure on Uncle Luka to send him gasoline and diesel. And so Uncle Luka put 18 train cars on the train tracks and sent them to Russia, whereupon they were summarily destroyed. Now, our boy Yeah, Uncle Luca. That's what we call him around here, Edwin. Uncle Luca, if he sent Russia everything that they refine, it would barely cover 8% of Russia's daily needs. And obviously they can't send everything because they have to run their own country. Belarus doesn't have the refining capacity to really assist the Russians. They could maybe make up 2% a day, right? But ultimately, they are not going to change the calculus, the cold, cruel, crude oil calculus that the Ukrainians have been executing against. They're not going to change it. And that calculus leads to one inevitable conclusion, that if you don't have the gas for your school children to get to school, if you don't have the gas for your tanks to advance and your armored personnel carriers to bring troops to the front, you cannot prosecute a war. Look, I'm not saying that this is going to be easy for the Ukrainians. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. But if I were a magic 8-ball right now, and you asked me, is Ukraine winning? My response would be a firm, unequivocal. All signs point to yes. Kommersant reported. I just remembered the other thing that was in Kommersant today. Kommersant reported today that the export ban on refined oil products from the Russian Federation will be extended until January 1st, which means it will never resume. It will never, mark my words, it will never resume. Never resume. No. Russia's done. Russia's done. And they've deployed an Oreshnik launcher in Belarus. Why that close to Ukraine or Poland? It's pointless. It's stupid, Nightshade. Oreshnik is nothing. You know. It's a PR stunt, Oreshnik. Who gives a fuck? Bip, the rats aren't just leaving the ship. Well, they're not leaving the ship because they can't. Right? Russia won't let them leave the country these days. And so instead, the rats are eating each other. We're actually watching the rats eat each other. And I can point to 18 oil company executives who have committed suicide in the most amazing ways. One of them committed suicide by beheading himself. That's not even a joke. The Russians say that this guy that was involved in a potassium and magnesium mine, which is important, right, because those chemicals are used for all kinds of interesting things. He beheaded himself in a fit of depression. Am I a Russophobe? No, I'm not a Russophobe, because phobia is an irrational fear of something. To hate and fear Russia is the most rational response to the genocidal culture of rape, murder, and theft that is the Russian Federation. Anyone who doesn't hate Russia and want to see it destroyed is not paying attention. Just not paying attention. And the good news is we don't have to destroy it, because these kinds of gangster societies always carry the seeds of their own destruction in their own actions. And we're seeing it happen right now. Why else does the Russian Federation need private prisons for the FSB that have no judicial oversight of any kind? And why do they need them by January 1st? Because the Russians know that Russia is tearing itself apart at the seams. And by January 1st, They are going to need to perform mass detentions, mass arrests because of the internal societal strife. They are going to need mass arrests to quell dissent. Why can't Ukraine hit 60 Russian oil refineries each night? Would anybody like to answer that question for this gentleman? Anybody else want to answer this question? Hey, Annalata, how you doing? Takes a lot of drones and planning. They need weapons. They don't have the weapons. There aren't 60 left. That's a great point, actually, Kao-san. That's a great point. We think, right, that the Russians have 22 active mega refineries and then about another 11 small regional refineries. So all up, all that the Russians have are 33 working refineries right now, to the best of my knowledge. Now, there may be some small private refineries, that are processing 500,000 barrels a year, something like that. But they don't count, right? It's too small. It's too insignificant. So first of all, there aren't 60 to hit a night. Second of all, just hitting these, figuring out how you're going to fly a drone through 400 kilometers of Russian airspace without it being detected, and then have it hit a particular processing unit or workshop that is critical to the production and distillation of refined oil products after 400-kilometer trip is a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to do. But the Ukrainians have been doing it very successfully for 2 years now. Increasingly successfully. Why? Because every time they do it, they get better and better at it. Very difficult thing to do, too, I want to highlight. We talk about it because it happens all the time as if it were easy. There is nothing easy about war. Nothing. And certainly hitting critical enemy infrastructure deep inside their own territory, where they've got air defense assets deployed to protect it, is extraordinarily difficult. And I stand in awe of the Ukrainians every single day because they do it every single day. The other problem, of course, are the constraints of the drone weapons themselves. The drones carry a maximum TNT equivalent of 250 kilos, about 500 pounds of explosives, a quarter ton, right? They can only do so much damage. And on these huge oil refineries and chemical plants and military industrial complexes, that you can't do critical damage that's going to take them out for a long time. So that will change when the flamingos start flocking east. The new Flamingo missiles carry a warhead of 1,050 kilograms, over a ton of TNT equivalent. But there's problems with those too, right? They're not an easy solution that'll just work like that. Those missiles don't have any stealth capabilities. In the initial, as I understand it, in the initial attack on Crimea that they were used in, only 1 in 3 reached its target. The others were shot down. Therefore, in order to assure that the missiles are going to hit the refineries, you need to fire 3 for every 1 that you expect to hit. And or you have to have some other decoy mechanism or some other methodology for confusing Russian radars, which the Ukrainians do a good job at, right? Like we just saw those balloons over Moscow that created all kinds of false radar images, and the Russians for 8 minutes couldn't determine what was a legitimate target and what was a balloon. Balloons. Who would have thought of balloons? Only the Ukrainians. We still don't know where those balloons were launched from, by the way, right? Like, that's an interesting question to ask in and of itself. Commerçant says that the export ban on refined oil products will last until January 1st. The FSB's private prisons absolutely, Edwin, absolutely. FSB's private prisons are opening now and will be ready to accept the results of mass arrests, dissenters as of January 1st. The December budget reconciliation is coming. Ukrainian oil sanctions keep flying east and keep hitting Russian refineries, increasing the stress internally, the societal stress. And it's showing in the really desperate actions of the Russians these days. Specifically, of course, we saw what happened in Liman Pershi this week, where a Russian commander was intercepted on the radio telling his men to eliminate everyone in the town. Just indiscriminately eliminate all men, women, and children in the town. And they did. We must not forget that the Ukrainians are paying the price in blood every day as they serve as a shield for all of Europe and Western democracy. That's a real thing. And it's a nightmare before God. It is also the sign of a cornered rat. A rat that knows that those people in that town have been witness to 8 months of war crimes and can testify against the commander who goes by the call sign Bali. And so he ordered them all executed. And there's going to be more of that kind of desperation, more of that cruelty, more of that callousness. As the net closes, the circle tightens. And make no mistake, the net is closing. The Ukrainians are slicing and dicing the Pokrovsk. I was hesitant to use the word the lines are collapsing, right? I've been saying the lines are fracturing, the lines are cracking. But increasingly in the northeast of Pokrovsk, in the Dobropilla direction, the lines do appear to be collapsing. The Ukrainians are making excellent progress there. And I think we're going to see that progress continue. You know, Bip, I wish I was the kind of person who believed in hell. I wish I was the kind of person who believed that there was a God that cared. But I don't know how anybody looks at the situation. And I'm sorry, Angela, I know it's not how you think. But I don't know how anybody could look at the abduction of 20,000, minimally, Ukrainian children who are being sold to the worst people on earth right now for the worst possible crimes to be committed against them. How anybody believes in a God that would let that happen. I don't understand. And the fact is that it is not God that is going to save the Ukrainians. It is the sheer will of the Ukrainians to grasp their future in their own bleeding hands that will assure the victory of Ukraine over the Russian menace. Children being labeled as extremists are being sent to mental hospitals in the occupied areas. And you know, there's nothing like being left to the tender mercies of Russian psychiatry. Poor. How does Ukraine get their oil to operate? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. I mean, Ukraine buys a lot of its energy from, the Hungarians, the Poles. There's a lot of energy being bought now because, of course, the Russians have destroyed so much generating capacity in Ukraine. That's why my energy bill has tripled. My electric bill has tripled since I moved into the apartment in Kyiv. Because we're buying it from outside the country now, and it's expensive. Ukraine has its own, I mean, this whole war is because in 2012, Ukraine proved large gas reserves, natural gas reserves around Crimea back in 2012. Well, that was a threat to Russia's monopoly on pipeline gas to Europe. Putin couldn't have that. So what did he do? He illegally annexed Crimea 2 years later. This, make no mistake, this is not about Russian speakers. If it were, the water would be on in Donetsk. This is not about land. If it were, they would have taken the territory that they claimed to be theirs and they'd have gone home. Put an end to it then. No, they keep pushing into Dnipropetrovsk, into Sumy, wherever they can get a foothold. No, they keep pushing into Dnipropetrovsk, into Sumy, wherever they can get a foothold. I'm gone. Nothing? Nothing. Ah, bloody hell. That's funny, though. You guys are doing okay there. Can you hear me even? You can hear me. Can you see me? I'm back. Little hiccup there. Okay. So again, big thanks to Arna, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and of course to the moderator team, Jay, Travis, Pete, Maddie, and Feisty, best moderators on the Tickety Talk. Thank you all. Final thoughts and questions on this Friday evening. Got an early morning, huh? Thanks, Nightshade. Guys, if you don't follow Nightshade, give Nightshade a follow. He's got great detail reporting pretty much every day, right, Nightshade, of what's happening inside Russia. Hey, Lil Red. So I said North Korea lost a mechanized column in Ukraine. I was victim to internet conspiracy. I apologize. No worries, Bip. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, most of those North Koreans have been sent home in boxes. Happens to the best of us, man. I have all of the retraction videos that I've published to prove it. The best was the one time I got suckered into a psyop that the GUR was actually perpetrating on the Russians. And I believed what was happening. What I thought was happening was because of disinformation that the Ukrainians had planted. For whatever reason, unclear even now, 2 years later. So I've been much more careful about it since then. Those North Koreans have monuments now, do they? Has Kim Jong-un erected monuments to the brave heroes who liberated Kursk from the Ukrainian menace? Yeah. What they failed to tell those dead North Koreans was that the Ukrainians are still in Kursk. They're still in Kursk. October 6th, it will be 14 months of Ukrainians going to bed and waking up in control of Russian territory consistently for 18 months. Ha! Tapeworm monument. Did Trump destroy the statue of him and Epstein across from the White House? Imagine my surprise. I'm shocked and amazed. Shocked and amazed. Is Ted Greenow here? I don't know if Ted made it up or if he copied it from somebody else, but I saw on the Book of Faces, Ted had a post about Trumple Thinskin. He called him Trumple Thinskin. And I was like, Trumple Thinskin, that's a riot. It was illegally removed. That's what I figured. That's what I figured. Somebody had asked earlier. Somebody had asked earlier about what I think about the generals and admirals all being called in. Ben Hodges General Ben Hodges, former Supreme Allied Commander of Forces in Europe, wait, was he SACEUR or just in charge of U.S. forces in Europe? Anyway, a fucking guy to be reckoned with, right? Like a guy to pay attention to. General Ben Hodges today posted on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that in 1937, Hitler called all the generals in to make them take a new oath, not to the Constitution, not to the Weimar Republic, but to Hitler himself. And it could well be that we're seeing something of the kind, some kind of purity test, loyalty test. It could be, too, that he wants a war plan for invading Venezuela, or he wants a war plan for invading Canada or Greenland. And make no mistake, he wants to do those things. He definitely wants to do those things. So we should all be concerned, deeply, deeply concerned about all of that, in my opinion. I want to be a dictator next. I want to send all the Republicans to alligator Auschwitz. Give them a taste of their own medicine. Take Hannity off the air. War plan against hurricanes. He's going to start nuking hurricanes to protect his investment in Mar-a-Lago. It's okay, Maddie. We're all here together. Don't worry about it. Hey, Dr. K. Hey, everybody. Say hi to Doc K. I'm exhausted, Kara. What a week, boy. What a week. I don't know how you're doing. But I'm just about to call it a night here. It's reported that Hegseth wants to give a warrior... Really, Pete Hegseth is going to give the commanders of the greatest army in the history of the species a warrior lecture, is he? It's a shame that this administration has no sense of irony at all. All right, kids. You know, Flip, you can fuck right off. I'll tell you right now, pal, with your bullshit about how I pronounce Sophia. I'm an American, right? We don't do anything right. You know that. We do it how we like it. Tim, you got to come before I meet you at Hector's. We're throwing a barbecue on a beach in Crimea. I'm not sure if it'll be the West Coast or Yalta. I'm thinking maybe Yalta, or maybe the beach near Mariupol. But we're going to do a pig roast and roast a couple pigs once the Russian pigs have all been expelled from this land. And so before I get to Bethel Woods again, you should start saving up, pal, and come to my pig roast in Crimea. And I'm not even kidding. That is not a joke. I am not kidding. Everybody here should be thinking to themselves, oh, Nana Pam, don't tell me that. Ugh. Right? Maria Holmes says she's going to be there. Take care, Oscar. Bip wants to go. Dude, it's going to be a good time. I promise you. I promise you it's going to be. I know one thing, the food is going to be great. The food is going to be great. I can promise you that much. I can't guarantee the weather. But now look, we got time, right? I don't think Crimea is going to be liberated and safe for us to barbecue in. In 2025, I'm not so sure about 2026. I'm not so sure about 2026, baby. Of course, Feisty. Of course. I mean, you know, after everything that our dictator wannabe Tangerine Palpatine has done to our closest neighbor and friend, the least I can do is roast a pig and feed you some good pork. With my apologies, my abject apologies for having spit in the face of our closest ally and neighbor. No surfing. The Sea of Azov and the Black Sea aren't big enough to really have a tidal effect. Mango Mussolini. Nice, Paul. Man, that would make me the happiest guy in the world if like one person from New Zealand or Australia came to this party. That would really make me so happy. So start saving your pennies. 2026, that's kind of a long shot. Summer 2027? I mean, I can almost see myself booking the room already. Cheesesteak sandwich. Man, I'd like it. Dudes, I'm so pissed. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go to bed. Good night, everybody. But yeah, no, I'm serious, guys, about the pig roast in Crimea. And anybody that wants to come will get some discount, hotel rooms, group discount. And I'm going to raise me a couple pigs, feed them on good food so that they taste good. Oh, you guys make great mustard, Maria. I'd like some of that. Bah! Bip went to BK because of me. That's funny. Good night, Derek. Again, everybody, thanks, Arn, for sponsoring tonight's live and everything you do for this channel. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Peter's Peeps, or Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group, and to the best moderators on the Tickety Talk. And I will talk to everybody Monday from Warsaw. And then Tuesday, we're going to be off because I'll be traveling back to Kyiv on Tuesday. So there will not be a live next Tuesday. So don't anybody freak out when I'm not on. That's all that's happening. I didn't get blowed up. Probably. All right, kids, make it a great day. Yeah, of course, Warsaw, right? I can't fly from Sofia back to Kyiv. So I fly back to Warsaw on Monday and then take the bus out Tuesday. So I'll be in Warsaw on, I think, I don't know what time my plane gets in. I feel like I scheduled it right for check-in. And the hotel check-in is like 3 o'clock. Oh, hey, hit me up. Maybe we could have coffee or something if you're going to be in town. That would be righteous. That would be so righteous. If you have time, you know. All right, guys. Take care, everybody. Make it a great day.